Hello everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic Wrestling, and it's the biggest weekend of the wrestling year. It's night one of WrestleMania 41. Let's take a look at everything that happened. 3 bits of news to report from the kickoff show. Number 1, WWE has acquired AAA and they'll be putting on a Worlds Collide event. News number 2, Rey Mysterio unfortunately is not cleared to compete against El Grande Americano, but he has a substitute and it's Rey Fenix. And finally, some news ahead of Sunday's show. Lyra Valkyria finds Bayley beaten down backstage and she needs to find a partner in the next 24 hours. Triple H opens the show and welcomes us to WrestleMania, but there's no national anthem, no America the Beautiful. It's quite an interesting change of pace. DJ Salvatore Ganacci introduces some kind of Fatal Fury sponsorship deal with dancers and stuff, but then we're straight into the first match of the night. Jey Uso taking on the World Heavyweight Champion, Gunther. Jey has the Las Vegas Raiders cheerleaders as part of his entrance, and there's people with big yeet flags running up and down the ramp, and Jey makes his long journey down from the crowd. Gunther comes out as well, and Jey is slow to start, prompting immediate speculation that he may have hurt his arm at some point. He's definitely favoring it early on, but then drops Gunther with a big early strike. But there's lots of talking going on between the two competitors and the referee. Not certain what really was going on here, but Jey did look better as the match went on, so I don't know. An early body slam attempt leads to Gunther falling on Jey and getting kind of an accidental near fall, but Jey gets the big body slam at the second attempt and goes up top, but he gets chopped down to the outside and Gunther takes control. Jey answers back though with a spear for a near fall, but then Gunther hits a superplex, then a shotgun dropkick and a big powerbomb for a near fall of his own. Jey lands another spear though, followed by the big Uso splash, but the champion again survives. Gunther is now frustrated and grabs his belt and goes to leave. Jey doesn't want this to happen and goes for a dive. The referee has to leap out of the way of Jey's dive attempt, but then misses Gunther, hitting Jey with the belt, and the match continues with no DQ. Gunther goes straight up top, hits a big splash, and Jey just kicks out in time. Gunther slaps on a sleeper hold, but the crowd chant yeet to will Jey to the bottom rope, but Gunther rolls back into the middle, but Jey stretches out a leg and just gets the bottom rope to break the hold. Gunther gets frustrated and beats Jey down, but Jey starts to fire up slowly and they have a strike exchange, which Jey wins with a big lariat. He then reverses a sleeper attempt with a German suplex, but then Gunther counters a spear with another dropkick and goes for the powerbomb. Jey lands on his feet and drops Gunther with a big powerbomb of his own. That was probably my favorite moment of the match. Jey hits a couple of big super kicks and another spear, followed by a big Uso splash and a second and a third one to the back of the champion, but he still doesn't make the cover. Instead, Jey grabs a sleeper and drops down to the mat with Gunther, who taps out quite quickly, by the way. And Jey Uso is the new World Heavyweight Champion. Jey gets the big celebration, everybody's yeeting and everything, Jey's celebrating with the announce team, and when he gets back in the ring, there is his brother Jimmy to celebrate with his twin. Big feel-good moment to start the show, and the brothers leave through the crowd. The next match sees the War Raiders defending their tag team titles against the New Day. The New Day argue with NFL star George Kittle at ringside while waiting for the War Raiders, who make their entrance in, let's say, odd gear. Apparently this is part of the Clash of Clans sponsorship. I'll be honest, I don't like the entrance gear. Luckily, they take it off before the bell rings. The New Day start by double-teaming Eric, who just no-sells a big strike to the face and then throws one of the challengers into the other. Eric then throws Ivar off the apron onto both of the New Day, and the champions are well in control early on. Ivar even pressing the advantage with a big running crossbody into both New Day members as they sit against the apron. And it's still all War Raiders early on with a big double-team move for a near fall until finally the New Day gain control, with Kofi landing a big senton from the top onto Eric, who's being held through the ropes. The New Day grind Eric down for a while, and Woods does a Ric Flair strut to get some heat from the crowd, but Eric fights back and gets the hot tag to Ivar, who runs through a lot of his nice offense on both heels. The New Day again try to double team Ivar, but Eric charges across the ring with a leaping Superman punch kind of thing to knock one of the New Day out of mid-air. However, he then takes a Trouble in Paradise from Kofi and ends up on the outside. Ivar is isolated, but takes out Kofi with a spinning wheel kick and hits the big moonsault, 1-2, but Woods breaks up the pinfall with a top rope elbow drop. Eric tags in and destroys Woods with a big knee, but Kofi saves him from the double team finisher. The New Day then hit their double stomp backbreaker combo on Ivar. Woods makes the cover, and Kofi sneakily holds Ivar's leg down from the outside, 1, 2, 3. It's a rather sudden finish, but the New Day don't care as they grab their newly won belts and run up the ramp to celebrate. Next up, the grudge match between Jade Cargill and Naomi. Naomi makes her entrance, ripping through some caution tape, and then, oh, 1 second, guys. Time for a weather update, because I think you'll find a storm is coming. Yeah, Jade comes out a bit like Storm from X-Men. She's dressed as her before, I think in AEW, and, you know, yeah. The weather report was a strange choice. Jade starts off with a vengeance, taking it to Naomi, who eventually has to roll to the outside, but Jade goes after her and whips her into the barricade. Naomi gains control by going to the eyes and then hitting a very nice draping X-Factor off the apron to the floor, followed by a blockbuster off the ring steps. Back in the ring, Jade fights back with a tilt-a-whirl backbreaker before impressively catching Naomi in a jackhammer position off the top and slamming her down for a near fall. Jade sets up for Jaded, but Naomi grabs the ropes to stop the move, but then she goes up top and gets caught in midair again, this time hit with a fall-away slam as a result. They struggle for position up top and Naomi hits an avalanche bulldog followed by a split-legged moonsault, but it's only a near fall as well. Jade again goes for Jaded, but Naomi rolls through and gets a near fall, followed by a Rings of Saturn submission attempt, but Jade powers up with Naomi on her shoulders, but then Naomi jumps down and lands on her feet, only to get scooped up in the electric chair position, and then Jade flips her around and hits a terrifying powerbomb. Honestly, that could have been the finish, but Jade picks up Naomi again, hits Jaded, and gets the big win. Next, we have Jacob Fatu out with a special entrance mask and Solo Sikoa by his side for his US title shot against LA Knight, who arrives in a lovely car. Knight starts off in control and goes for a quick BFT early on, but Jacob counters it and stares him down. A huge pop-up Samoan drop follows, and Fatu's looking strong early on. The champion, though, fights back and heads up top, but Jacob reverses his leap into a nice quick power slam, but only gets 2. Knight builds up a head of steam and throws Jacob into a couple of the ring posts before hitting his nice jump-up elbow drop for a near fall. Jacob looks for his moonsault, but LA Knight cuts him off, springing up after him and hitting a huge German superplex for another very nicely timed near fall this one. It was a good false finish. Another BFT attempt is avoided and Jacob hits his running hip attack and a couple more as well on top of that to firmly take control. He hits a lovely swanton, but again, it's another nicely timed near fall, so Jacob goes up for the moonsault, and LA Knight counters it in midair with a BFT, shades of Randy Orton. 1, 2, and Fatu grabs the bottom rope to break the pinfall attempt just in time. Knight ends up draped over the top turnbuckle, and Jacob hits an avalanche Samoan drop on him, followed by a pair of moonsaults to become the United States champion. It's sold as a big moment by commentary. Michael Cole says, "Oh, SmackDown better beware," now that Jacob Fatu is US champion. And Haku is there at ringside as well to congratulate Jacob in a nice moment. The next match is El Grande Americano versus Rey Fenix, subbing in, remember, for Rey Mysterio, who sustained that injury on SmackDown. Americano gets a sepia-toned entrance and a mariachi band, and Michael Cole is just flagrantly saying on commentary that Americano is Chad Gable, while the other two commentators try to keep the magic alive. Vikingo is shown in the crowd to hammer home the AAA affiliation, and then Dana White is shown, and he gets booed a bit. Americano argues with Vikingo before the bell, so Vikingo hits him with an enziguri over the top of the crowd barricade. This leads to Fenix immediately getting a pinfall attempt off a Hurricane Rana at the bell, but Americano kicks out. They balance up top where Fenix hits a nice flying head scissors, followed shortly afterwards by a springboard missile dropkick and a springboard dive to the outside. By golly, he is agile. Back in the ring, Americano hits a big German suplex and shouts "Gracias!" and doing the Chad Gable taunt as well, so, you know. We know who it is. Americano presses the advantage for a while, but Fenix does his nice, you know, the thing where he catches himself in the ropes and then turns into a spinning kick to the head. But then shortly after that, Americano launches him across the ring with an overhead belly-to-belly into the corner, and I think Fenix perhaps narrowly avoids a scary landing. Americano heads up top for a moonsault, but this was, like, astonishing. He keeps rotating and ends up hitting like a reverse 450, a crazy spot, and everyone in the crowd seems legitimately taken by surprise. I know I was, watching at home. Americano tries to rip off the mask of Fenix, but the babyface fights back and goes for his tightrope across the top rope, but Americano shoves the ropes and Fenix falls. The referee checks on Fenix while Americano sneaks that metal plate into his mask, as he's been doing on TV recently. He goes for a headbutt, but Fenix avoids it and this time hits the tightrope kick to the head on the top top rope, but of course, this only hurts his own foot. Americano grabs an ankle lock on the other leg, but it doesn't really matter because Fenix rolls into a near fall and then goes for a flying headbutt out of the corner. Very unwise, as obviously Americano comes off better from this clash of heads. Fenix is down and out. Americano heads up top and seals the deal with a diving headbutt and wins the match. Fenix loses his WrestleMania debut, and El Grande Americano is ecstatic. Vikingo gets in the ring and checks on Fenix, and that brings the segment to an end. Shawn Michaels comes out next to thank the fans and announce the attendance, and if you're not down with that, he's got 2 words for you, and then the DX music plays and hooray. Next up, Charlotte Flair tries to take that championship from Tiffany Stratton. Tiffy comes out first despite being champion, arriving in like a Barbie toy box themed kind of looking thing. Charlotte arrives in a different lovely car to LA Knight's lovely car, and Charlotte is of course wearing a very ornate robe. After a quick stare down at the bell, we get a takedown from Charlotte and a brawl on the canvas with both women fighting for position, scrapping. They brawl to the outside. Tiffany throws Charlotte into the ring post, and on commentary, they're really playing into this animosity thing, saying, oh, these are some hard shots. There's not a lot being held back here. Tiffany takes control briefly back inside, but they head back outside where Stratton is back suplexed onto the crowd barricade. Back in the ring, Charlotte steals Stephanie Vakir's head pound thing into the mat, and then she stands tall, and the crowd boo her for this. Flair applies a Boston Crab, actually more of a Walls of Jericho really, but Stratton gets out and a little bit later hits a pair of her cartwheel handspring back elbows in the corners of the ring. A big spinebuster gets 2 for Tiffany, followed by the prettiest moonsault ever, but Charlotte rolls out of the way and Stratton has to roll backwards to avoid a big impact. Charlotte then takes control with a big boot and talks trash to the champion while laying in chops, but Tiffany fires back bravely. Stratton avoids natural selection, but Charlotte lands a big sit-out powerbomb, but it only gets 2. She goes up for her moonsault, but Tiffany stops her, and then Charlotte kind of backward rolls a little bit awkwardly down off Tiffany's back, and then runs into another spinebuster from the champion, but again it's only a near fall. Stratton reverses a flying crossbody from Charlotte, rolling backwards into a near fall, but then ends up on the outside in position for Charlotte's big moonsault, but Tiffany jumps up to the apron and shoves Charlotte down into the ring, where she jams her knee. Flair immediately yells, "Stop, wait, stop, stop," and sells the knee hard, but Tiffany ruthlessly targets the leg. Charlotte survives this, and now she targets the champion's leg, ramming it repeatedly into the ring post. Back inside, she locks in the figure 4, but Stratton breaks it by hammering away at that injured knee. A chop block tilts the match back in Stratton's favor, and she goes for the moonsault, but Charlotte blocks it with knees, only to of course hurt her own knee in the process. Tiffany tries to press the advantage off this and almost gets caught with a cradle, but Tiffany kicks out just in time. Charlotte ends up on the top rope and hits a flying version of natural selection for another very close near fall, and then another roll-up is broken up, both women scrambling for position, and Charlotte goes for, I think, like a tackle or a spear, and Tiffany moves out the way, and Charlotte ends up diving head first into the turnbuckle. Tiffany then hits the challenger with an Alabama slam into the buckles, then a rolling senton, and then she lands the prettiest moonsault ever, 1, 2, 3, and Tiffany Stratton has defeated Charlotte Flair to retain the title. At the end of the match, after Tiffany has celebrated and raised the belt, we get, I think, a little moment of respect from Charlotte on the outside, who gives a little head nod of acknowledgement before heading away. Before the main event, we get the Hall of Fame inductees out on stage, and Triple H gets the big entrance with his music, and he does the water spit and whatnot, and now it's time for the main event of night 1. CM Punk versus Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins. Seth comes out with a flamethrower because he's gonna burn it down, and Wade Barrett instantly calls this the coolest entrance he's ever seen. The lights go down, and when they come back, we see that Seth has done a quick costume change, ditching his all-black top layer to reveal special WrestleMania white gear, of course. It's classic Seth. Roman's out next with mainly his usual attire, but also some white shoes and white accessories as well. It looks a bit different. CM Punk gets a bespoke video package recapping his WWE career, and then, of course, the live living color performance of Cult of Personality. And it's worth mentioning, of course, that Paul Heyman is in Punk's corner, but what's he gonna do? Let's find out. The bell rings and Punk rolls to the outside to have a little bit of a team talk with Heyman, but also to play some mind games with Reigns as well, of course. Seth tries to maybe strike up an alliance with Roman, who doesn't agree and just starts to beat his former stablemate down. Punk gets involved, but Roman clotheslines him back to the outside and then runs around the ring to hit a drive-by on Seth. But then Roman wastes a bit of time yelling at Heyman and gets sent into the ring post before then Seth dives onto him and throws him into the ring steps. It's down to Punk and Seth for now. The pair glare at each other and brawl around the ringside area. Punk sends Seth into the crowd and leaps with an axe handle before attacking him with one of the fan chairs. Seth fights back with a couple of trash can shots, but then Punk suplexes him onto a trash can and they brawl gradually back towards the ring, and then Roman flies into frame with a surprise dive over the crowd barricade and takes both men out. They all get back to ringside and Roman clears off the Spanish announce table. He attacks Seth with the big prime bottle, but then Punk fights back and gets Roman in the ring. Punk mocks the ooh-ah taunt and goes for a running knee, but Roman scoops him up with a big Samoan drop. Then Rollins springboards in, but Roman catches him with a big right hand. Punk gains control of the match and hits his running corner knees to both opponents. He then takes them both down and hits the Macho Man elbow drop on Seth. He goes up top to hit one on Roman, but Seth's up with him. Roman then gets Seth in the electric chair position, and Punk turns the whole situation into quite an impromptu doomsday device. Roman gets a near fall off a Superman punch to Punk, but then Punk counters the spear with a kick to the face, but then Roman avoids the GTS, then Punk wins a strike exchange, and I think hits a rock bottom for a count of 2. Punk locks in the Anaconda Vice, but Roman grabs him by the face, and then Rollins flies in to nail both with a frog splash for 2. Seth now beats both men down and hits a pair of buckle bombs. Punk counters the pedigree though and goes for a go to sleep, but Roman spears him instead. The two former Shield men then exchange moves until Rollins counters a spear with a lovely mid-air pedigree, followed by the stomp. He kicks Punk out of the ring and covers Roman. Is this it? 1-2. But no, the OTC kicks out in time. Roman then avoids a Fenix splash and Rollins has to roll to avoid landing nastily, but rolls right into a go-to-sleep attempt from CM Punk. Rollins slips out, but then is immediately speared by Roman, but then Roman is immediately hit with a GTS by Punk, but the OTC again kicks out just in time. Punk wants to finish Roman off with another go-to-sleep, but Roman struggles and slips out of it, and Seth comes in with a pedigree to Punk, but again that only gets 2. Seth now tells Roman that without him, without Mox, he even mentions, without the bloodline, Roman would be nothing. But then Seth notices that Punk has rolled to the outside, and he changes his tune and tells Roman that they should work together and take Punk out now once and for all. Seth prepares the English announce table while Roman is very conflicted, but then decides, yes, you know what, let's do it, let's do a shield bomb. They set Punk up, and then Roman drops Seth with a right hand and smashes Punk through the table on his own. That's not all. As Seth is powerbombed through the Spanish announce table, Roman gets him back in the ring and hits a big spear, 1-2, and Seth just kicks out in time. Roman rants about Paul Heyman and slaps a guillotine on CM Punk as Paul looks on. Punk thinks about tapping but turns it into a jackknife for 2. He locks in the Anaconda Vice, but Seth breaks it up by locking Punk in a sharpshooter. Then Roman breaks it up by locking Seth in a guillotine. Seth powers up and hits a Northern Light suplex for a near fall, but Roman kicks out and keeps the guillotine applied, but then Punk comes in with a stomp to Roman and a go to sleep to Seth, who again just kicks out in the nick of time. Punk wants to go to sleep on Roman, but drops him to hit one on Seth instead. Roman then spears Punk, but Seth has rebounded off the ropes from the go to sleep, and he stomps Roman, and now all 3 men are laid out in the middle of the ring. That's the cue for Paul Heyman to go and get a chair from the timekeeper's area. Punk and Roman both see him holding it, and Heyman hesitates and then slides it to CM Punk, and Roman Reigns cannot believe this betrayal. Heyman gets in the ring with Punk, who goes to hit Roman, and as he raises the chair, Paul Heyman low blows CM Punk and sides with the tribal chief. Heyman gets down on his knees and presents the chair to Roman, who lays in a few big shots to a downed CM Punk. But then Heyman stops him and points out that Rollins has got to his feet on the other side of the ring, and he's in perfect position for the Shield betrayal kind of chair shot spot, but with Roman, of course, now getting revenge. Roman loves this idea and steadies himself and raises the chair, and Paul Heyman low blows Roman Reigns as well. Paul hands Seth the chair. Seth hits Roman in the back just like he always does, and a stomp finishes off Roman Reigns, and Seth Rollins gets the big win and turns heel in the process as well, of course. Rollins and Heyman celebrate on the ramp. Heyman's looking all devious, and that is the end of WrestleMania Night 1. Thank you very much for watching this video. Let me know what you thought of any of the matches from tonight's show in the comments section down below. A big thank you to Owen and Luke for editing this video, and I'll see you tomorrow night.